You're listening to Nakedly Examined Music, a podcast about songs and songwriters. My name is Mark Linsenmeyer. My guest for episode 127 is KatieJane Garside, a singer, a poet, I'm going to say a mystic. She emerged in the early 90s, fronting Daisy Chainsaw. You're right now listening to their hit single Love Your Money from 1992's Eleventeen. Her main collaborator in that was guitarist Crispin Gray. She quit after 2 EPs and an album. He went on, did one more Daisy Chainsaw album without her, but they reunited under the name Queenadreena and put out 4 albums between 2000 and 2008. She then quit that, and in 2007 put out 1 solo album and then got together with Chris Whittingham, guitarist and now her spouse. They put out 4 albums over a decade as Ruby Throat. And in 2020, they renamed their band Lalleshwari, released the brand new album Geiger Counter. We're going to be discussing My Brain Is Lit Like an Airport from that album, then look back to Hu'u by Ruby Throat from Baby Darling Taporo from 2017, and then look further back to Lesions In The Brain from her solo album. She released it as Lalleshwari. The album was called Lullabies in a Glass Wilderness, 2007. We'll conclude by listening to the title track off the new album, Geiger Counter. For more information, please see KatieJaneGarside.com. For more about this podcast, see NakedlyExaminedMusic.com. And if you want to support this podcast, please go to Patreon.com/NakedlyExaminedMusic. I'll play a little bit of Love Your Money by Daisy Chainsaw from Eleventeen, 1992, just to reintroduce that, how you got on the scene. But we're going to get very quickly to your newest stuff. My Brain Is Lit Like an Airport from Geiger Counter, 2020, the new album by the newly re-christened Lalleshwari. So it's the same, it's Ruby Throat, but you added a rhythm section. Is that why it's a new band name?
I feel it as a change in energy. It's simple. It just insisted it be so. And I think we had to step free of that mantle, let go of that coat of Ruby Throat. And Lalleshwari just feels a lot more appropriate to this right now.
Do you have a couple words to introduce My Brain Is Lit Like an Airport in particular before folks hear it, or should we just let it surprise them?
You know, life's full of surprises, isn't it? And I've kind of made a habit out of that, really. You know, as in these songs, a friend of mine called it Scream of Consciousness. So that song was written. It's a long story and we'll probably get around to it, but I suppose we probably should hear the song.
My brain is lit like an airport, so the angels will find me. Now pounding the shore, pounding the shore. It's a crapshoot, love. Run away. It's a crapshoot, love. Hey, alive!
Can we get a little bit of structural information before we get into the meaning of the song, which is, do you just come in with lyrics and then Chris comes in with a guitar line? How exactly do these elements come together?
I think this is in what I was saying before about this signifier of the energy shift was what we did. We've been at sea for like 4 years. We were on the land and we could plug in after 4 years of not being able to plug in. What I've been doing for the last couple of years is meditating really intently. So I meditate for an hour in the morning. And when I come out of that meditation, I write before my brain is caught up with itself, before she remembers who she is. So I write my stream of consciousness, my stream of consciousness, just utter nonsense. And I put it away for a long time, at least 3 months if I can, before I look at it again. So I'm very disconnected from it. And then when we're improvising in record, I have those sheets of paper all around me and I let the words pick me. So this song is an improvisation caught in record, and then it's an hour and a half improvisation, and where everything coalesces, somewhere in the middle or towards the end of that, I don't know, that's an edit, and that's my brain is lit like an airport, and then Chris has overdubbed on it.
So you carve this down to the 4.5 minutes that it is, and then you add more guitars and drums and things like that to finish.
The drums were there, but yeah, he added, then he goes to town. Yeah.
You said you were playing to a drum loop, but they're clearly like parts on this.
Yes, he will have added stuff.
Okay, all right.
Or maybe the whole track, I don't know. I can't actually remember.
We should talk about the thing that came out of this meditation. I mean, to me, it sort of sounds like the whole thing is a song about songwriting, a song about trying to beckon inspiration down. But do you have any idea at this point, even what it was about?
Well, that's interesting you say that, actually. The phrase, my brain is lit like an airport, kept coming back again and again through many different meditations and writing sessions. And, I was calling in all my people on high, come, I'm here.
So some of that I get. I mean, it's a crapshoot. You don't know whether the inspiration is going to come or not.
I think that's more about the risk of the knife edge of life, actually, rather than directly to the songwriting process. But I've meditated since I was 18. I make up a lot of stories to go with that, and they're real to me. I talk to my people, as I call them. They change shape and form all the time. It's created a through narrative in my life. And in a sense, it's given me an anchor into not being anchored. It's made that safe enough for me.
Not being literally anchored, yes.
Well, literally as well. But it's just made it safe enough to not have any handrails and to be able to walk the knife edge, really.
So is the image of Elijah in particular, what resonance does that have for you? Was that even connected to the sort of biblical story and all that?
No, not directly. Many years ago, I was messing around with the idea of automatic writing with a pen. When I talk about the stream of consciousness after meditation, it's always, tap, 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 tap onto us.
Really? That works for you? Because I have a lot of trouble with keyboard. I've had to go back to pencil.
Have you?
Just to make that work creatively. I don't know.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How these seemingly small things make such a huge difference in our process. For me, for stream of consciousness, keyboard creates an extra disconnect for me because I can touch type, I can let my fingers do the talking. But when I was talking about, when you just mentioned Elijah, that was years ago, and I was writing with a pen or a pencil. And I asked the person writing through my hands to name themselves, and that was Elijah. So I've carried Elijah as part of my story. I've dipped in and out with Elijah. Sometimes Elijah seems to write through my hand in a very clear and pure way, and I've been more disconnected from that as a source in the last few years, but I still always hold that name. It's a very powerful thing for me in my story and my storytelling.
Did you have a sense? So most of this is just back and forth between two chords, but then you hit this, what I called the bridge, this light is coming off the page, where we get a third chord here. Did you have in mind, okay, something different has to happen here?
Chris and I, and some years before that, we've been writing songs for many, many years, or involved in this process for many years. What we found, this is why I was using that word gratifying, actually, was that within the improvisation, there is a song structure. It might not be He does a bit of editing after, but the structure is there. When the song is coalesced in the improvisation, the structure is there. That's strange and gratifying. What I mean is that we've been writing songs for so many years that you almost have the template, I think, in the unconscious, in the subconscious. Not that I want a template, but it happened with another song, Mud Stars, that we're not talking about today. It's also improvisation that went straight down. It missed out all the stuff of having to take apart an improvisation, relearn it, rebuild it, and try and record it with the same verve and shock landing, which you can never recapture. And that's, that's what I've always been aiming at for so many years. And I've got it in a few places. But this song on this record, I think we've managed to sort of do that in a way that we haven't, we've been more successful at that.
So when you say you have your papers scattered around you, this part about she wants me on the show, I'm considering if it'll give me more exposure, I could share my recovery process. Was that from a different pile or was this part of the same? Okay.
And the stream of consciousness is, there's a lot, it'll be a block like that on each page. And so it might be from different, I don't know if it's from a different sheet, but it probably is, but it was all there. And some of it will be actually improvised in that moment rather than coming off the sheets, or the sheets are just giving me a toehold and then I can zoom off down improvisation alley.
Am I guessing the hamster plays the piano, which is done at a particularly vigorous point, is an improv line?
I guess so, yeah.
And then we get into this guitar solo area, which I would not have expected hearing the other album that Chris had this amount of grit in him. Is that from his prior life before Ruby Throat?
He's been handcuffed for so many years. So he was finally let out the gate, he's allowed to. Because I came out of a noisy band for 10 years. Everything was shot to pieces and I couldn't drive over bridges. I just completely cauterized so many nerve endings as just the walking wounded. And I couldn't have loud noise. I couldn't do the drums. I couldn't have guitars through amps to a degree, but we did some with Ruby Throat, but not any real loud stuff. But that really goes with that energy shift into Liar Flower. I just knew the energy shifted and I could do it again. And then it was more than that. I kind of needed to do it again. We needed to let all the voices kind of live in the room,
That's all the voices, that it's not like now you're back to the old style. It's really quite a varied album with your auto harp quiet pieces alternating with things like this, just every conceivable level. Well, let's get a second song out on the table, one of those more mellow things by Ruby Throat from Baby Darling Taporo, 2017, Hu'u. Is that just because that's one of the things during the improv section, one of the noises you made, or does that word mean something?
That was written going across oceans. There's a lot of space to make that noise. Hu'u. I think it almost has a question mark. Hu'u with a question mark, really.
in the back of cars. Kick him in the water, do it quiet.
Again, we have a repeating riff, very nuanced, very nicely recorded, old Southwest kind of Americana. I mean, do you think in terms of genres for any of this stuff, or it's just acoustic with some mood?
That was written sailing across the Pacific, so it's a song of the Pacific, wide open spaces and storms, really. And I think that's why I want to talk about that song, because it's a journey song. We recorded the main bit of that song. This is unlike My Brain. The main bit of that in New Zealand, actually. So that was recorded on land, even though it was written on the boat going across the Pacific on a 5-string mini guitar. Looks like a ukulele.
I was thinking it was a nylon string, but basically same sound, ukulele and nylon.
Yeah, it's a 5-string small guitar, I believe. But it's just a beautiful instrument that actually it was given to me and I can't play it, or Chris gave it to me. But with most of that record, the Baby Darling Taporo, it was recorded on that little guitar. And I just love the tone of it. It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, let's talk for a second about, as a poet, as a lyricist, about your attitude towards instruments. That, I noticed you have a bunch of auto harp pieces on this. Was that a fairly recent discovery in terms of using that as a songwriting tool?
Yeah, I've carried it around for many years. And that came around the world, that beautiful thing. But I couldn't make friends with it and I didn't like the sound of it. And I'm not a musician. I sort of follow story, I don't know what I am actually. I'm an impulsive chancer, that's the truth. And I just finally found a way to make that make sense to me, but I was trying to play it, as you would with a pick. Just the sound was so grating. I really didn't like it. And then I just a few months ago started playing it with the side of my thumb rather than the pick, and I really liked it. And as a non-musician, it's such a great instrument because, you just got some chord buttons.
So this song is mostly that single guitar with this mood synth going in and out over it. But then there's some parts where other guitars, and I thought that might have been auto harp doing a little bit of junking around.
No, there's no synths on there either.
Oh, so that's all string.
Guitars, yeah.
So just heavy, long reverbs that are faded in. I guess that's what that is.
Chris loves to collage, but there's definitely no synth. He might have used a cello bow.
I just like to get a general idea of how you're working in this. So this is a 7.5-minute song almost. Can you say a little about, so this has a definite verse and then a chorus that has some arrangement. It's a little more traditional structure.
Yeah.
Did this come out of the same meditative kind of process, lyrics first?
Actually, I did meditate on the boat, but no, I wasn't writing in that way. What I did do is I would do the dawn watch. That means I think I get up at 4 when we're crossing oceans. And in that dawn watch, in that sort of half sleep, I would lie in my bunk and I have to get up every 15 minutes to check for ships and check the weather. So what I would do is set the timer for 15 minutes. And as you're so tired, because one of those crossings was like 30 days from Galapagos Islands to the Marquesas. So I'd be waking up out of that half sleep every 15 minutes and I'd always write down whatever was there in that half dream state. And that I did make into a book of poetry, but the stuff that didn't turn into poems, I did turn into songs. So that's where this is actually a pretty similar process, isn't it? It was more traditional songwriting or carving something out of stone, really, like sculpting it, and rather than letting it write itself, which is a big, small shift for us.
I'm just trying to get an idea of what this chorus, it's a very sad sort of chorus. I could lie with you like a sail, but it is sinking full of dew. I could fall in love with you, but the world is too depressing, kind of, or something like that. You don't need to demystify anything if you don't want to, but if you know.
I'd love to have the key to demystifying anything, but I don't think I can. Don't think I can demystify anything at all. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what any of it means. I suppose it's just as how it feels. I agree, there's a kind of weight there. You could eat your own Carnegie. Which even that word, what does that mean in that context? As in like Carnegie Hall or like your inner rich person, go-getter? Yeah, no idea. No idea. Or even is this a meditation sort of talking to your own subconscious? Do you have an idea, or is it some kind of love song? Do you have a sense of who this is in second person, but I don't know who this is sung to? For me, I could sit there and sort of unwrap it, but it would change on any given day. I think I'll go along with the feeling, and the feeling of being in an immense ocean with absolutely no reference points, and the enormity of that, the potential of that to pull you under. I've long ago sacrificed the idea of sense of self or identity, but that's incredibly visceral when you're on the ocean, because you actually don't exist. So much of existence really is in reference to something that it stands next to. If it has nothing to reflect back on, it is a form of annihilation. So I think to be of the mind that, this is all really, it's all a dream.
Well, I guess there's different ways of taking that, because there's it's a dream so we can relax and, not get caught up in but then there's definite kind of fear of death, like you were referring to, but the ocean I see myself in the hem of that dress as they pulled it from the body, take back the key from the unnamed breast. I mean, it sounds like an anonymous drowned woman or something that you're reflecting on.
Before we went off across the oceans, we lived on canals in North London on a canal boat. There was a reoccurring image of the body of a prostitute in the canal. And that has played, I think that's who she is. She keeps playing out through my unconscious or subconscious to a degree. So I think she turned up there in the middle of the oceans. Did
that inform the early part of the song, or this is just an image that came, if you impose that into the wrap me in your violent hair, kick him in the water, do it nice, that whole beginning section, it gives it a different context.
It does, doesn't it? It's, I never reflect back. I've only sort of remembered that image from you quoting those lyrics. But I do think that's right. I suppose it does all go back to, the ultimate annihilation, which we all carry with us in our pocket, which is fear of death. I suppose the whole song could be said to hang upon that today.
The closest thing to a Hu'u in the song is at the end, where you've had a couple choruses and you're starting to improvise a little with the melody and doing these really pretty rephrasing the words with a different melody than they came in the first place. Is this always first take? Or do you that wasn't really significantly inspired, I want to do this 9 more times?
I think that this song actually got finished here. So it was the main body of it and the vocals recorded in New Zealand. And then I remember actually arguing about this song a lot. It was one of those ones where we knew that this, or for us, it's probably our most satisfying Ruby Throat song. We knew that we got this thing, but I was really tortured by the end of it because I just couldn't find it. I couldn't find that melody to get out. And I'd caught it a couple of times while we played it in the cockpit at sea. I'd sort of found it, but then as soon as, get that red light fear of, when you're in record, just couldn't find it. And it was really upsetting me because I just knew it, for us, it was a really sort of lovely thing that we were sort of really, and I was really attached to it, but I was being driven mad by not being able to get the end of it right. And that's, again, I swear, I really like writing in improvisation. If it's recorded in improvisation, I'm fine. I'm not a musician, so sometimes I can jazz out, but then I can't do it again. I can't find it again because I don't understand what I did or how I did it. So I'm good with inspiration, but I'm not good with music. So yeah, that was really torturous, but we found it anyway when we got back here. So we finished all those recordings that had been started in New Zealand and finished them and mixed them here on the ground, with plugs and everything.
So this one actually has a little bit of backing harmonies, a little bit. Like it sounds like one word or one phrase. Is having your vocal, you have a very Bjork-like acrobatics, but yet she likes to really layer herself, which usually seems to be something that you, for the most part, avoid, but you did a little of it here. Is that something, you're listening back like, that could be a little thicker? Or when do you decide, in particular with the end of this song, it sounds like what you're describing is that you had some more Hu'us, but like, okay, well, let's put a bunch of reverb on that. And now that's the background vocal. And now you're going to sing a new lead part. This, they laugh, they love, or I wasn't sure what the words were at that little part.
I don't know what the words are at that part.
Do you remember what the thought process was in this case of like, okay, we are going to have a little bit of harmonies, or we are going to have some vocal interplay? I guess we had that in Airport too, right? Where at a certain point we had multiple voices that were kind of echoing around.
You know, all those in Airport, those are all improvised, as in from earlier in the improvisation that he's spun in.
Oh, okay. So it's not even you hearing something, it's him electronically adding that, I guess.
He's chopped it up and blown it in, yeah. Yeah, getting that last bit on Hu'u, I was really happy when that happened. And I think we improvised out. Quite often I'll just run again and again and again. And Chris, he really collages. But he's also incredibly light of touch.
Well, let's get the third song out there, which has no collaging at all. Lesions in the Brain. You are calling yourself Lalleshwari from Lullabies in the Glass Wilderness 2007. Am I right? Is this still Chris before?
Awesome Waji. I'm afraid we're going to continue on a theme. I was still in the big noise band.
Queenadreena, yeah.
And I had these home recordings, just 4-track on the floor, 4-track, tape machine. And I was recording my Lalleshwari record, as you said, and Awesome came round and it was continuing the theme. That was an improvisation. And I suppose that was probably where I got the confidence with that star, to know that I can write in improvisation and allow it to exist in the world. That would have been a long improvisation, probably half an hour or 40 minutes, however much fit on probably a 90-minute tape on the full track. And then I've just cut out the bit. But obviously there's no overdubbing, so I've just gone, that's where it begins and that's where it ends. I don't believe there was any sheets of paper around me, so yeah, just grab that nonsense out of.
Well, this one sounds like it has a story. Let's hear it first.
Cock for the cross and the lace and the red house, wait for the run on the rain. I walk the dawn and I wait for the sunrise. I walk the dawn time again. I watch the mystery, watch for him watching me, watch for the mystery song. Checkpoint the jolly of someone's derisions, and I won't be waiting for long. Lesions in the brain and I'm going insane this time. No, 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 no. Lesions in the brain and I'm going insane this time. I cut down the horses, we crossed on the desert, we watched for the range and the sun. I won't be waiting for some for the lovers, and I was the color of mine. For color enrages the story of lovers, the rage and the cold hand of old. I will be waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting till I've got old. Lesions in the brain, I'm going insane this time. No, 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 no. Lesions in the brain, I'm going insane. No, no, no. On top of the houses, we cross for the desert. I'm waiting home for the sun. She lives in my blind spot. I wrote it already, but I'm already waiting begun. I sold for the rage and the summer of ages. I waited cross for my beard, the beard of the lady who watched from the sunrise. And oh God, I'm already scared. Lesions in the brain, I'm not going insane this time. No, 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 no. Lesions in the brain, I'm not going insane this time. No, no, no. Cock and blue story of someone in glory, the lover's cold hand set on fire. Please put it in me, oh please make it be in me, oh please set it in my desire. I won't be waiting for sunrise, no I won't be waiting surprised. For the end of the road it was already loud, and I fell down behind. 'cause I fell and I fell. The problem was they had removed all the ground piece, and God, I kept falling to hell. And as I'm waiting for someone to catch me, for someone to stop my insane fall, I heard a knock and the door was ajar, and I opened it, there's no one at all. 'Cause lesions in the brain, I'm not going insane this time. Lesions in the brain, I'm not going insane this time. No, no, no. Lesions in the brain, I'm not going insane this time. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Yeah.
This is a 6.5 minute one. So it's another, you've picked ones on the long side, although hearing now that these are culled down, like, one of the songs on this album is 18 minutes, which sounds like that one you just didn't cull down. You just left it more or less intact, right?
Just One Day of Endless Love, was that?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought we kind of needed that to be quite long because we could all do with just One Day of Endless Love. Yeah.
So was this like a little cassette? I have my cassette 4-track right here.
Yeah. Mine was Tascam, yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to make those sound good. I mean, I guess it's cassette, so if you don't do too much overdubbing...
It depends how you define that.
If you're averse to overly bright, like your comment about the picked auto harp, then the soothing sounds of the... I guess if you got full 90 minutes, then it's not even on the Tascam. I know you can get better quality if you speed up the tape, if you play at double speed, but that sounds like you're just playing it at regular speed. This is a type 2 regular tape.
Yeah, it must be. I just suddenly had a thought. Did I record that straight to mini disc? But I'm pretty sure I didn't. I'm pretty sure it went onto the Tascam.
For 2007, that's a pretty bold move, because I keep that thing around because I used it in the early 90s with my band at the time. That's what we had. But yeah, starting in 96 or whatever, I upgraded to ADAT, and then now everything's on the computer. So
I just always loved the 4-track. I still got one actually, and it's set up and I was working on it, but I haven't sort of made friends with it this time. I've been recording cassettes recently, just not on the 4-track, but just straight to cassette. Like with a real mic, or just with a cassette Walkman kind of thing? With a good mic, yeah. And I've been selling those because we hand to mouth. Right. I was just seeing that on your website, just to explain that. So you're doing one-off recordings. I'm going to play a song for you. I'm going to send it to you. Nobody has this version. You don't even have this version because you've sent them the original. Is that right? Or you don't even digitize? Yeah, we don't. What we did do, because, we're in the knowledge that most people don't have cassette players. we've made one digital copy of that cassette. So if they want that digital copy, they can have that as well as the cassette. So I've been doing that with the auto harp songs. I think I'm recording 5 auto harp songs, but I do it as a kind of put a skeleton kind of framework together, but it's kind of just an improvised thing, which I'm doing with 2 phones and a radio and jumping around on the radio and the phones with different music and mixing them in with my songs. So if I turn on the radio, and I've been using quite a lot of Ligeti. So I've been running that from YouTube and playing Ligeti with some of my auto harp songs. And sometimes I can find, the sort of map that goes really beautifully together, and recording that directly to tape. So every tape is different, and whatever happens to be on the radio, spinning it on. Sometimes it's 3 phones and the radio and me and the auto harp, and sometimes it's just me and the auto harp.
So are there lyrical ideas that might come up during one of these sessions that you're just like, okay, I gotta at least write that down and use that for a real song later?
No, that isn't happening, honestly. If a piece of music comes on the radio and it's really beautiful, I would just sing along with it, like improvise. But I've just been in, one of my favorite things to do is to sing without lyrics, because sometimes I find it just feels so secondhand if we're improvising. Language is, I sometimes feel it just feels like everything uttered just sounds like a cliche, like it's so 10th, 100th, millionth hand old. To speak without words is, I think maybe that's the next thing, is to do a whole record without a lyrical content, because that's, I use that word again, very gratifying.
I'm trying to remember the name of the band. There's an Icelandic band that's very famous that's not coming to mind.
Actually.
Yes, thank you. That way he just makes up a language that it could be an Icelandic. I don't know that anyway, so it might as well be nonsense. Pretty sounding syllables. Let's reflect on what you just said there with regard to Lesions on the Brain. So here, we've got words. Through the progress of this song, the tone of your voice goes very far. That by the end, you're doing something. You're even doing like bird noises. Did you have a sort of character in mind with this? Like, this is obviously really different than the other ones, that it's got this little snappy swing riff that you're going off of. It's more of a straight up beat poetry thing. But then there are a couple places where you do nice soaring notes.
Well, it's just a bit of fun, isn't it? That's sitting there playing with Orson, who I found him as a player just so gorgeous, So I got him all to myself, and that's what happened, That's an impulsive chance of reaching out and grabbing for that. I can't really explain or go deeper into it. It's just what happens, That is it. It's just, if you play it long enough and you go into the zone of no zone, into, no, I was going to say no self. It is no self, but certainly not this bit, not the frontal cortex bit. That's what happens, and it's so fun. I recommend that to anyone, to find that place. That's what I'm reaching for.
It's interesting you say you don't reflect back on this stuff because you have such an obvious psychological curiosity that if you're doing something automatic writing, then, well, you can't analyze in terms of like, what was I thinking when I was doing this? Because like, I don't know. It was just coming out. But that's actually a psychological tool that people use, is do some automatic writing. So I'm looking at the sounds you're talking about, walking around in the sunrise, but there seems like a fear of rape for the run on the ring. Like, that's how the song starts. This little groovy thing, rape is the first word that comes out. Do you have any idea? That seems a little disturbing.
So I guess it's the prostitute in the canal again.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that's before the canal, but that's interesting actually, that sort of comes back.
Or later in the song, she lives in my bones, but I wrote it already, but I'm already waving the gun. The whole rest of the song, so much of it is nice, walking around and looking at the desert and the colors. And of course and I'm not going insane. That's coupled with that. But then you have these things, by the end, you're begging for help, that it is clearly if this was a protesting too much, I'm not going insane. By the end, it's no, please help me. Mother, please help me. A girl going crazy. A lover deprive me amour. I want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. I let you collide with the floor. So this, conflict and falling imagery and all this fear in this very light, snappy song.
I had this deal going on, actually, at the time that was written. I've never thought about this. So, this is purely coming out because of you. In that band, it had kind of gone calamitously wrong. Crispin and I had found each other after sort of years wandering. I've been up in the Lake District finding the voice by screaming at the top of mountains, losing the voice. And I came back to London and I was going to make all these recordings out of all the stuff I'd recorded on DAT, which was Waterfalls and Scream of Consciousness. I couldn't kind of make it all work. I couldn't find a way of getting it together. And I met Crispin again, who I've been in Daisy Chainsaw with. And we were both very, very scared of each other because, you know, being in a band can be really rough and torturous for some. So we started this dance and we started recording, and we recorded a song called Pretty Polly, and we reckoned that went pretty well. And then we had a bunch of demos, 4-track demos, and they all sounded good. And I was like really sort of happy and going, oh, these are beautiful, and they're tiny and broken and corrupt, and I love them. And then we went down that road and there was a record deal and all that. And then we went into the studio, and then suddenly these broken little demos just became these sort of monstrous rock songs, and the whole thing sort of gathered a momentum. And I felt, after my sort of shamanic reverie in the wilderness, I felt like it had all gone wrong. My plan had all gone wrong, and I was caught up in something that I'd sort of never quite intended. And because of that, there was almost a sort of transgression against my soul. And I felt like I was prostituting the muse to a degree, for want of a better word. And that's why that became sort of embodied that, to make it, I had to be that. If I was going to be that, I couldn't find my way out of it. I had to make it bearable and authentic to myself. I had to be that. So I was a transgression against my soul, prostituting my beloved, which is my, you know, my connection. I was going to say my connection to the divine, but it is kind of that. That's how it is for me anyway. I had to show everyone that I was a whore, because that's what I was, and that's transgression against my soul. That's why that's bled out into that song. So it's not in that song. That's a reflection on that state of being. Because actually I was having a good time now, because I'm actually making a 4-track recording with my friend Orson. That is a version of events where it's not true, but it's a version that we can use.
Well, yeah, this is a very adventurous album. Let's say that. I'll refer folks that you can do a pretty good, I was going to say Freddie Mercury heavy metal in terms of, like, that's some of what's coming out with Queenadreena, that, you know, this voice that you can do all these things with definitely can work over a giant mound of rock slab, but
it's like one of the loudest bands in the world. And people would say it in rehearsal. They would say, "Wow, that's just so loud." And I just kind of, again, I've used this word again. I was kind of annihilated by it. It's so...
Yeah, no, having to sing over that, like, yes, you can do it, but like having to do that. So it's nice to have a song like this where you can just do a different character that would not pop over all that stuff.
Yeah, so it took me a while to find my way out of that. But the 4-track recordings of that Lalleshwari album, that was my sanity in that situation. They kept me company, and I could always come back to that. And that's, you know, I know Lalleshwari is by no means a perfect record. But it's sort of necessary document of the time for me. And as I said, you know, I'm an impulsive chancer, so I'll put out something that's basically unlistenable.
Well, we're going to leave folks with one more from the new album, the title track from Geiger Counter. Before we say goodbye, do you have any introductory words for this one? This is a much shorter one. This is a different side to the new album than My Brain is an Airport.
Yeah, my brain is lit like an airport. It's funny, somebody else called it that as well. My brain is an airport. No, it's definitely not. But it's lit like one. Geiger Counter, just, I don't know.
So I will direct folks to go to your website, get a one-of-a-kind. I find that so fascinating to try to make music, which now that it's electronic is inherently duplicable. But yet to try to make it like a painting or like a sculpture that you can have a one-of-a-kind performance. I mean, I guess that's what the live gig is supposed to be, is that there is something in the air that'll never be captured, never happen that way again. And are you playing out with the new, obviously not now, but like, were you planning to with the new record?
Yeah, because, you know, we do that. You know, we toured a lot in the early days with Ruby Throat, and we like to do that. You know, I need to do it, really.
Still with just the two of you, or do you have a drummer or something coming along with you?
We'll have to see how all that goes. We're kind of hand-to-mouth musicians, and, unfortunately, there's an economic thing that as soon as there's more than two people having to ship around the country, it's quite hard to come home with any pennies in your pocket.
Well, you have a child to ship round, right? Or
yeah, she'll be, yeah. Yeah, she'll love that. Yeah, she'll love that.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I know you feel like that you don't know where these songs came from, but just the description of your processes of priming yourself up to do this is in itself is very interesting.
I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the way you ask questions, Mark. I find that really stimulating, actually. It's making me think, and I really thank you for that.
All right, here's Geiger Counter.
I will ride you round the gene pool. I will console you. I will breathe the breath into a dead man. But I'm already sky. I'm already sky. Electromagnetic bikini. I wish you were here to see it, Daddy. Daughter of Nebula, sing with me. I'm already sky. I'm already sky. I'm already sky.
Thanks to KatieJane. You got to hear a little bit of our auto harp in that one. As I'm sure you've been able to surmise, she's got a very unrestrained, interesting catalog. If you want to learn more about it, go to KatieJaneGarside.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Nakedly Examined Music. You can find the relevant links at nakedlyexaminedmusic.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, which will give you access to my next episode with Roger Joseph Manning Jr., most famously from Jellyfish. His material really stuck in my head. He's got a new EP by members of Jellyfish under the name The Licorice Quartet. You're really going to want to come back and hear that. My most recent recording, which you will not hear for a couple months, was with famed trumpeter John Hassell. And if you think KatieJane was mysterious on the origins of her songs, John was so mysterious that I had to get one of his bandmates, the multi-instrumentalist Rick Cox, known for his soundtrack work, to do a supplementary interview that I'll be weaving together. So that's a first for me. I hope you're all doing well. It's a very busy podcasting time for me. Not so much music recording, but I hope you all are making the most of your creative gifts. Keep on musicking. Until next time, this is Mark Linsenmeyer signing off.